I've spent $226.78 on non-essentials during my no-buy year, so let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Maria, and this is Living Planet Friendly, where I document my imperfect, low-waste lifestyle in hopes to inspire you to make small changes that can have a big impact. Welcome to my non-judgmental platform, where we incorporate sustainable habits that are good for us, our wallets, and the planet. Welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited about today's update. As many of you may know, I've been doing a no-buy year. I tried to do a low-buy year last year, but had spent over $1,000 during the month of January. So this year I'm trying to do a no-buy year with the goal of just lowering my overall consumption and my consumption habits. I'm keeping track of all of my expenses on my 2024 no spend tracker. I bought it on Etsy, so I will leave the link in the video description. It's super easy to use. I did add 2 extra sheets to the document. One of them tracks my expenses, so I can write down the date, where I bought something from, what I bought, and how much I spent. And then the next one is my add to cart, which are things that I put in my online shopping cart and then decide not to get. So I'm tracking the date, the item, and what I ultimately decided that led me to not purchase the item, and then how much it cost, so how much I saved. So just to go over my no buy rules, and sorry, Pepper is chewing on a bone. I am not tracking essential home expenses, which is anything from our mortgage, taxes, bills, utilities, insurance, car insurance, pet essentials, all of the above. This would also include like car maintenance, and we're also including any home projects that we're doing. Also, what I'm not tracking are medical expenses, so doctor's visits, medication, etc. I'm not including groceries. We've set a grocery budget. We're pretty good at sticking to it. And included in this is also eating out twice a month, because it's just what we usually do, and that's also not a spending issue for us. I'm not tracking monthly business expenses, so like software subscriptions, if I'm buying something that's specific for content, different fees that I have to pay, none of that is included, which isn't very often, but I do have a set amount every month that I spend on software and stuff like that, so I'm not including that. And I'm also not including gifts for others for birthdays or holidays. What I really am trying to do is stop buying stuff for our house and stop buying personal things that I don't really need. I did fairly well in January. To put it into perspective, I used the same tracker for last year, for 2023. And at the end of January, I had spent over $1,000 on things that I considered last year as non-essentials. That's just insane to me. That's why I also switched to the terminology this year. Everybody always comments and says like, oh, you're calling it a no-buy year, yet you're buying things. I've gotten a few of those comments. But switching the name from a low-buy year to a no-buy year has totally shifted my mindset. It was like almost just the motivation that I needed to hold myself accountable. I pulled up the spreadsheet on my iPad. Let's take a look at it. So on January 3rd, I was knee deep in my temperature blanket, and I found a few things online that I thought would help with some of the problems that I was having. So in my Amazon cart, I had added stitch markers, a crochet ring, and a yarn winder. So for the stitch markers, I actually just started using safety pins, and I marked out every 10 stitches. I really wanted to be able to crochet and listen to audiobooks, but I couldn't count and then also focus on listening to what I was reading. So I use stitch markers to count out how far I have to crochet until I have to switch colors. Because again, my temperature blanket is hourly. It is not daily average temperature or high temperature or low temperature. So I saved $7 by not buying the stitch markers. A crochet ring is something that has really helped with my tension. You can see very clearly when I started to use it, but it's just this little ring that the yarn goes through, and then it helps you hold tension. It goes right on your finger. My husband actually 3D printed this for me. So you can buy them online for like 10 bucks. They're not very expensive, but my husband 3D printed me a few of them actually in case I lose this one. So super excited about that. So that saved me $10. And then I like to work with my yarn in balls. And of course I had 20 something skeins to turn into balls, and I really wanted to buy a yarn winder. I really considered it. I decided against it, mostly because it was $25 and I just didn't think that I really needed it. So instead I popped on some audiobooks, and at the end of each night I would roll one ball until I got to like the colors I was using. So I have about half of them done, but I saved $25 and I'm just gonna keep going. I'm hoping to thrift one day. That would be awesome, but we'll see. So that's the first week of January. I didn't spend any money until January 7th. Part of it, I definitely had a busy work week that week. I had a lot of stuff I wanted to get done. And I was also picking back up on reading and listening to audiobooks. I have found definitely over the last month that because I picked back up reading and a hobby that doesn't have to do with scrolling on my phone, I don't see ads for things. I don't see people on the internet like telling me that I need to buy something for a problem in my life that didn't exist a minute ago. We did have a birthday in the first week of January, so we did buy a birthday gift, but of course not tracked. And on January 7th, kind of a business expense, but not really, we bought a whetstone and garden stakes. Our kitchen knives had gotten really dull and we tried using a sharpener that I had thrifted and it just did not work. So we ended up buying a whetstone for about $20. We did buy it on Amazon. To get to free shipping, you had to spend $35. So I went to my wish list and I added a 10-pack of garden stakes that were metal that I was gonna buy anyway, closer to the springtime for when I start gardening, but I just bought them early. So that total was $62.95 and that was on January 7th. That was the first time that I bought something that I would consider non-essential. I probably should have included it as a work expense, but I didn't. The second week of January, I added a Fitbit Inspire 3 to my cart. The price was $70. It was on sale. I really considered buying this, and this is something that I still might buy later on, but I'm doing that 30-day thing where if I still want it in 30 days, I'll buy it. January 12th was the next day that I spent any money. I went thrifting that day, mostly for content, but also I needed a dress for the Cheer Choice Awards. I also went to restock sourdough jars. I sell sourdough starter in thrifted jars on my website. I was down to 1 or 2 jars, so I needed to restock. So I did end up finding a bunch of jars, which was great. So that total was deducted from what I spent. It was like $25, give or take, on those jars. So the balance that was what I consider non-essential was $47.12. And here's what I bought. I bought 2 dress options for the Cheer Choice Awards. I bought a lamp for my office, blankets for my dog's crate, a picture frame, a jean jacket, and a mud buster. Everything except the mud buster was on my wish list, which is why I allowed it. But also the mud buster was kind of on my wish list. It's great. If you ever come across one, buy it. So the $47.12 does not count what I spent on jars. So I got 2 dresses, the lamp, the blankets, all that for $47, which I thought was pretty good. And if you remember from my last No Buy Year video, I did put on my allowed list 1 thrifting trip per month, as long as I had a list and a purpose for going. I couldn't just say, I'm bored, I'm gonna go thrifting. I had to go for a reason. So this reason was I needed a formal dress for the Cheer Choice Awards, which I did not have a floor length dress for the Cheer Choice Awards unless I want to wear my wedding dress, and that's not happening. And I needed jars to restock sourdough on my website. But then I was able to film and do a thrift with me video for content. Remember, my goal here is not to be perfect. I know that there's going to be things that come up that I should spend money on. That's okay. That's why I'm doing this as an imperfect no buy year. The next thing on my add to cart list were floating shelves for my office. I finally figured out what I want to do on my office wall. I want to do floating shelves and have some like gallery frames that are sitting on those floating shelves, along with some little trinkets that I have. Floating shelves are expensive. The pack that I was looking at was $65 on Amazon. So those have been added to my thrift wish list. I might DIY them later on or come up with a different idea for that wall. But I considered it for a minute, just buying them. Then I thought about all the other things that I could spend $65 on and decided not to. The next day that I spent money on was January 14th. My Spotify subscription renewed. I did cancel every other subscription that I hadn't prepaid for, like Disney Plus does once a year. So those I couldn't cancel, but I did cancel every other subscription that I pay monthly except for Spotify because I do use Spotify every month. So that charged on the 14th. I am including it in my no spend tracker because it's not essential, but it's something that I decided to keep. Now, the 15th through the 19th, we were completely snowed in, like the whole week. My husband was off all week. We did end up going out on the 16th, that Tuesday, to go grocery shopping and to stop at Michael's. There was about a 6-hour period in between snowstorms where the roads were clear and we needed food. So we went out. We did go to Michael's too. I was working on my temperature blanket and wanted to signify the snowstorm in some way. So I added this blue thread that was really sparkly, and I just crocheted it along with that color temperature yarn for those 5-6 days that it was. I think it was a really cool but subtle way to signify like a big snowstorm. I'm not planning on doing any other events unless there's some weird like hurricane in the midsummer, but we don't really get those, or like an earthquake or something. We don't really get those either. I think I'm just gonna do snowstorms, but I don't know, we'll see. I bought 3 packs of the silver bluish thread for the temperature blanket, and then I also bought a new yarn box because Pepper was trying to rip apart the cardboard, and every time she walked past it, she would bite the cardboard box that I kept my yarn in. So I bought a plastic box. Safe to say she did not approve of that purchase, but I did. I didn't really have anything that fit in the space where I was going to keep it, and I didn't really want to move where I kept it, and I was tired of her trying to chew the cardboard. And I mean, it's a nice plastic bin, so once I'm done with my temperature blanket next year, I'm sure I will find a good use for it. I did also have a coupon, so I think the original total was over $30, but I had a coupon, so it's fine. So that's why it's a bit lower. And the rest of the week we were snowed in. I did a lot of baking and a lot of cooking. So again, I wasn't on my phone, wasn't doing anything, and I was also listening to audiobooks. I read 21 books in the month of January, 2 of them being Crescent City, and then I also read the 2 books in Fourth Wing. We didn't spend anything again until January 20th. We spent $71.64. We bought Pepper a new water bowl. This is important because she was sharing a water bowl with Waffles, and she was drinking so much water now because she's so much bigger that every time Waffles would go drink water, it would be empty. So we decided to move the smaller water bowl to somewhere where Pepper can't get to it, and then bought a big 1.6 gallon water bowl for Pepper. So far, it's been working out really well. I should clarify, the water bowl is not $70. That was just our order total, and I'll explain the rest in a minute. But that water bowl was one of those purchases that just makes life so much easier. So I'm glad that I ended up buying it. Also, to get to free shipping, we bought 2 floor mats, one for my office and one for my husband's office. We've noticed that our computer chairs have started making indents in the floor and marks on the floor in my husband's office. So we wanted to stop that from happening. So we bought 2 floor mats that are going to protect the floor from any further damage. So the total of that order was $71.64. I think the water bowl ended up being $25 or $30, and then each floor mat was like $18 or $19, and then tax and stuff. So the floor mats were also a really good purchase. We don't want our floor to deteriorate anymore. Also on the 20th, I ended up bringing my entire computer downstairs to my dining room table and worked on a huge library project where I took every book off of my shelves, made sure it was updated in Goodreads and shelved correctly, but then also on my own personal library spreadsheet, I marked what editions I have and any special notes. I ended up redoing that entire spreadsheet because it had been over a year since I had updated it. It was honestly just easier for me to redo it than try to go through and figure out all the books I've gotten rid of over the last year and all of that. So I really considered, it was in my cart and I was almost gonna buy it. I considered buying a book scanner. They're on Amazon for like $35. It would scan the barcodes on the backs of the books and then input the information. I ended up not doing it, mostly because I wanted to work on that project that day, but also because after this project, I don't think I would consistently use the scanner enough to keep it. So to me, it was not worth spending $35. That's something that last year that I would have like not even thought twice about and just ordered it and been done with it and then put the scanner in a drawer never to look at it again. But that's the problem. That's why I have so much stuff in our house, because we don't ask ourselves what's going to happen once we're done with the item. That's why we've been decluttering over 2,000 items per year, and we still have so much stuff. So after that, after the 20th, I went an entire week without spending any money. The rest of the week was just like a normal work week. So I didn't spend anything again until the 28th. I spent $7.49, and I bought a book. An audiobook though, so it's fine. I bought House of Sky and Breath on audiobook because I like to listen to audiobooks while I'm working, and I had a lot of work to do, but I also wanted to be up to date before the 3rd book came out a couple days ago. So I spent $7.49 and bought the audiobook. I originally told myself I was not going to buy any books this year, but I decided that I was going to allow myself at least one book a month that I could buy, as long as it was secondhand or not a physical copy, so an ebook or an audiobook. So that fits the criteria. I didn't buy any other books this month. That's fine. And then my last add to cart for the month, I added, this is a really dumb one, I added Cards Against Humanity box spacers. Let me explain. I take my Cards Against Humanity game places, so the box shuffles around a lot. In my box, I have the bigger, blacker box. It's not full, and if you have this box, you probably have this problem too, but the dividers in it knock all over and all around, and then cards end up everywhere. The dividers are broken in it. So I was gonna buy these box spacers, which were just like foam pieces that you stick in the empty slots for the cards. Such a dumb purchase. It would have been $18. And then I thought, I'm a packing materials hoarder. What do I have in the house that's foam? Turns out I had stashed away these, which we obviously got in a package from somewhere. I had stashed away these like foam pieces in the basement. So I went and found them actually yesterday and cut them into pieces. This is what I have extra still, quite a lot. I'm probably just going to use it to help ship out packages, but I was able to cut what I needed to make those like little foam box spacers. They're just out of styrofoam, but this is the good styrofoam, not the styrofoam that crumbles. I don't know what it's made of. I have a rule that if we get a package of styrofoam, the styrofoam immediately goes in a plastic bag by itself. It's tied and knotted. This is not the styrofoam that will like bust if you just look at it. So that's why I was comfortable cutting this up. So I saved myself $18 just by going in my basement and grabbing packaging and using that instead. And it works like a charm. Eventually I'll re-glue the box back together, but for now this is gonna work if we travel with our game, and it's gonna keep all the cards where they're meant to be. So in January, I spent a total of $226.78 on non-essentials, but I had added $229 worth of items to my cart and did not purchase. I'm pretty proud of both of those numbers, considering last year during the month of January, I had spent over $1,000. Okay, this is so bad. So during the month of January in 2023, I had 11 no-spend days, and I had spent a total of $1,238.90. So yeah, so I did have a decent amount of both business expenses and wedding expenses. Let me quick calculate. So about $400 of that was wedding expenses. So I had spent over $800 last year in the month of January on haircut, Cricut supplies, rechargeable batteries, a loaf pan, command strips, Brita filters, mason jars, a KitchenAid attachment, nice spice rack, lots of Tim Hortons, lots of Pango books, lots of thrifting. I had spent a lot of money by this point last year. I only have those tracked expenses through the end of February. I gave up in the beginning of March. So in January of 2023, I had 11 no spend days and I spent $1,200. In February, I had 17 no spend days and spent $598.22. I did not keep track of what those expenses were, so I don't exactly know for the month of February, but that's what January stats were. So I'm pretty proud of this year's stats. I saved $229 and I spent $226. Were all of those things essential? No. None of it was really essential. None of it was life or death, but it was all stuff that was going to make my life easier, help maintain some of our things like our floor in our offices and our kitchen knives. So I'm pretty content, and two of those purchases, like our Spotify subscription and then the audiobook that I bought, weren't physical things that we added to our house. So that's key for me this year. I'm trying to not add any physical items to our house. We have enough. We have enough stuff. So that's where I'm at for 2024. I had 26 days of not spending anything, and I only spent a total of $226.78. The goal is to teach myself that I don't have to be spending money all the time. I think that's just a problem with our generation, is that we get pushed so many products in our faces all the time, even if we don't know it. And we're the first generation that really has to deal with this. I always thought I was good at managing money, but I think I got into the loop of I was making more money, so I was spending more money instead of just maintaining my spending. So I'm trying to break all of those habits of this year. I'm trying to declutter my house and not bring more stuff into it. Because let's be honest, I'll be decluttering for the rest of my life if I don't change my consumption habits. And also, we're saving money for financial goals. 2024 is the year of saving. I hope this video was helpful. This is my first time doing a serious no buy year, so if you have any advice or tips for me, be sure to let me know. If you have any questions about how I'm tracking things or some of my rules, let me know in the comments. I will answer everyone. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. I'm thinking of monthly no buy year updates. I find it fascinating and I love to dissect my personal spending habits. Let me know if you want to see more of this and you want to see monthly updates. I do have bi-weekly short form updates that are also coming out. So let me know. Be sure to check out my other platforms on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. Happy no spending and see you next time.